Hello everybody, it's Monday evening, the day after I painted all of that with red oxide, and although I'd started putting the brushable seam sealer on, I'd given up because it was smearing everywhere. Now it's all gone nice and hard, so I can put my seam sealer over the bits that I've welded and then also replicate the big generous gobs of it that were in here when the car left the factory. It can get quite messy, so I'm going to try and be neat, and I might even use some gaffer tape to mask bits and pieces up. But we shall just get on with it, really. Hopefully the camera will stay put. Somebody said buy a new camera, and I would. But A, I don't really know what I should be buying, and B, it's probably quite expensive. I'd rather spend the money on Rovers. Again, just grey stripe U-pole. I'm not a sponsored person or anything, it's just what I'm using. I've got a tiny bit more on that bit. Don't do that, please. Just because I've got it in my hand. I have now blasted my parts for the heel board, but I'm not going to weld that in tonight because I've got other stuff I need to do. Oh, it's a pity. Cool. So, nice solid metal where once there was big rusty holes. It's now Sunday. I should be working because I've got a big report to do, but I've forgotten my laptop charger, and now my laptop has run out of battery, so I might as well come out here and do some more welding and cleaning and stuff. Those are the panels that I blasted, but I'm going to get the worst of the well, anything remaining with a strip and clean disc and a wire wheel on a drill. But because the iPhone, well, sorry, no, because the GoPro has run out of battery, so I'm using my iPhone. Back inside the car, I've been doing some cleaning up of that whole area with the strip and clean disc on the grinder and then the wire wheel. Come along here to where the seatbelt reel was. That's all good, it's just surface. Up here I've cleaned off again with the strip and clean wheel on the grinder to good metal, and I'm gonna start thinking about where to cut this. I haven't actually used a saw on that at all, that's just me bending and folding bits so I can see what's going on. I didn't really want to do any more chopping until I got the heel board welded in, but thinking about it, I'm going to have a lot better access to chop this out neatly with that void left open. So I'm going to take a reference measurement from here down to the top of that, which hasn't moved yet. It's still really stiff, which is good because it means the structural integrity of that beam should be quite good. So I'm going to take a reference measurement off that to the top of there, then I'm going to chop out this bit, and we should hopefully be making progress. Oh yeah, I'd already done that, hadn't I? 140 and 160 over there. I've rubbed those marks off, so I'm gonna have to do them again, but yeah, I'll crack on. That's quite satisfying. I'm going to chop out the middle of these trays as well, so I can take a look at the inner chassis rail. God damn it, that's alright, look at that. I was worried that that would be completely rotten because it would have filled with water, but it's looking good. So all this can be sanded off the top. That's the transmission tunnel reinforcer, which I suspect will be fine once I've got this off the top. I'm going to go find another cutting disc, and I probably won't bother recording this because it's long and boring. But yeah, I'll be chopping all that remaining stuff off there, then getting ready to put a repair panel in on top. Okay, that was 40 minutes to do that, but we have got, or I have got, pretty much everything off. There's a couple of errant spot welds down here that need to come out or just be rubbed down, particularly in that area because access isn't great. But once again, we have really solid metal. Even in that area, which I thought was going to be rotten, because it usually is really good. That whole area is me last time with the cutting disc cutting through, so I'll have to weld that up first. The replacement floor ideally would go between that stiffener and the inner sill, but I think what I'm going to do is, before I get to putting the sill on top, the skin on top, I'm going to weld a stitch of weld along there so that that is firmly anchored. Then I can chop the return flange off the floor and then seam weld that on as well, so it'll be really strong. My technique for removing the rusted floor was to cut down into it, cut slots, and there's a couple of places, particularly on here, where I've gone a little bit too deep, but I don't think that's going to cause a problem because the strength is in the sides, obviously, because they're the bits that'll be bending. There's a bit more corrosion here I need to chop out, a bit more than I thought, but that's not a big deal. Same as up here, I'll just cut another sort of 10 mil off. But all in all, that's really, really good. With this car, I probably sound a bit like that character off the Far Show who just makes miraculous discoveries and then says something like, which was nice. And it's the same with this car. Every time I do a job, it's actually easier and neater than I thought. This car's just actually in pretty good condition. Which you might think is a funny thing to say when you're faced with a hole that's probably 2 foot by 3 foot long, but you know, never mind. Right, I'm going to go off for a cup of tea because my lungs are full of shite now. Thought what 40 minutes of grinding and hammering has done to my fingers, because they're not in the best of nick now. Yeah, not good. Really cooking on gas here. A lot of this is kind of done, really. I need to have a good clean around in here and in that one particularly. Then I'll probably put some Hydrate 80 in it, because although there's no actual significant corrosion, there is some rust starting, so it'd be silly not to. Then comes the question of what do I put in there before I weld the top of the floor back on, because I could fill it with a Bonder primer again, but it isn't a finished waterproof top coat. So although it's high zinc content, I don't think it's the best thing for in there, because water can still get in there from like road spray and things. So what I might do is paint it in Jotun and try and mix a small amount up, because obviously I don't want to put loads in there because it'll just go off and waste, and it's expensive stuff. It's about 70 quid a drum, but I should really do something like that, tosh it in there as much as I can. So I'm going to get the drill, clean that out, then get some panel wipe, degrease the whole area, zinc spray it probably, leave that bit off for the moment, and then weld that bit in, weld here, maybe put a couple in there, and then, you know, keep on keeping on really. I don't really have a set plan, still make it up as I go along. Made an interesting and unexpected discovery. Still got cavity wax in here. All of that is the original factory wax. So that's why those bits hadn't rusted out, even though water had been sitting in them. Still got the original black paint inside. So yeah, I think I'm going to just hydrate 80 it all, because hydrate 80 is waterproof. It's a rust neutralizer, but I think it can also work as a top coat as well. So I think I'll just drown it in that instead, and then I won't have to mix up any Jotun 87, and I won't waste anything. So yeah, I'll probably not go too aggressive with the drill then, because I don't want to take that wax off. When the car's finished, I'll probably fill it with Dynamite anyway, which is basically the same as cavity wax. Because of that discovery, I think I'm going to weld this bit up now, because I don't want to like get weld spatter into this after I've put hydrate 80 on it. So I'll go find the welder. I'm doing a lot of groaning. Whew. This is quite a irritating job because you can't get comfortable. I'm currently sitting on a wire drill, which is not the greatest feeling in the world. All I've done is welded up that nasty hole I had. I've put some welds tying that inner, I don't know what, that thing. Yeah, that's on to the inner sill now, nice and solid. Filled in some deep cuts I had on there. Probably all overkill. Never mind. That could all come out. I'll go and find some hydrate 80, and then I can treat those bits as I said I would, and then think about what to do next. I still haven't got round to buying any degreaser, proper degreaser, so I'm still using brake cleaner, but it's alright for degreasing small areas. Shouldn't digest the cavity wax either. The holes are actually quite conveniently placed for getting rid of rust and scrap. see if I can get the grinder in there. Sander, sorry. Blinding myself. Yeah, and realistically that didn't do a lot. I think we're just going to go with what we got. As I said, all of this will get drowned in anti-corrosion wax when it's back together. I've treated myself to a brand new Halfords brush, extortionately expensive, but I couldn't be bothered to walk across the road to B&Q and get a shite one. But I figured another £1 saves me getting run over. Potentially money worth spent. For those of you who haven't watched these videos, this is the rust killer barrier system, Hydrate 80 by Built Hamber. They make loads of stuff like this, and again, I'm not sponsored. I haven't done back-to-back testing or anything like that. It just seems to work, so I'm continuing to use it. Feel free to use whatever you like. It would be nice to be sponsored, get money for doing nothing. I'm not going to put too much on the top surfaces because I'd only have to sand it off when I come to plug weld back with the floor. You can still see where the cavity wax is because this is a water based product and it just beads off it. I don't mind. I'm going to do exactly what I said I wasn't going to do, and I am actually going to paint the tops of these because there is some pitting corrosion, and I figured once I've drilled my plug weld holes I can go through with the scribe and take this off so I can still get a decent weld. Plans change, as they say. Sorry. Well, it's been said a number of times, and it's probably because it's true, but it always looks so much nicer when it's all painted one colour. Suddenly looks like it's not such an overwhelming problem. I don't really get overwhelmed by these things because it's just time. None of this really costs very much money. It's you know, gas for the welder, a few bits of tin, paint and that, but not too bad. Okay, the next logical step really is to weld the heel board in. So I've just been up the top and put some holes in, because that will be spot welded or plug welded into there. That should sit like so. I'll check that measurement again, but I'm pretty damn confident none of that has moved. So it's just going to be a case of putting that in and welding it, hopefully, into place. I might have to trim a bit more off there, and I can't remember whether I've told you, but the cabin floor sits on top of this, so we want this in first so that the floor can sit down on top of it, and I don't need to drill plug weld holes in this panel. They'll be in the floor, which ultimately will go on top. So I'm going to fanny about with this bit a little bit more. I might have to cut a step in there. Oh no, I won't. I'll just have to be careful how I do it in and around that area. And then, yeah, job's a good one. can actually see that the floor has gone down a little bit. It's probably all the hammering and everything I did on it, but that's looking really good everywhere else. Just going to tack it in a couple of places. Some eyes shut welding. Ow! How is it I've managed to burn myself already? Fucker. Ugh. Right, so that's where it's going to be going. Is that recording? It is recording. Good. Then it's just a fore and aft really. I might put a tack in down here just because I don't want that flexing too much. It's not super critical, it's not like we're bolting suspension in or anything, and you have got a bit of play, but you don't want this too far out of whack, otherwise you can't bolt the fuel tank in nicely. Where's my hammer? I really am working in a pigsty. I should tidy up. I resent tidying though, because it's time you could be spent doing something useful. Annoyingly, my GoPro packed up mid-weld, so you didn't get to see as much of it as you might otherwise have got to enjoy, but that's in there, all looks nice. Really the only point of interest was remembering to turn the welder up really high to make sure I got good penetration on those plug welds. But that's all in and looks good. Then out here I have my floor section, and usual disclaimers, this if you're doing a proper resto, or if I was doing a proper resto, I would have taken the whole car apart, put it on the rotisserie, chopped the floor out and put this in as one big lump, but I'm not going to do that because I can't be bothered. This is meant to be a quick turnaround thing and then get rid of it, so as long as it's done nicely, neatly and properly, I'm not going to go overboard by dismantling the car to a bare shell. So I'm going to go take some reference measurements, chop this out along here basically, then I'll clean off all the protective wax, put the plug weld holds in along here, and then I'll have to put a step in I think around that bit, and then get it in the car. My neighbours must absolutely love me. Is that working? That is working. Good. Right. Yeah, my neighbours must absolutely love me. That was very, very loud indeed. I've cut it out oversized because I realised there's no way I can get accurate measurements of big curvy surfaces. God damn it, how good does that look? It's like we've finished already. Shame I can't just glue it in. So I'm going to go underneath the car. Oh, actually that lines up really nicely. Those are our holes. Ah, bollocks, have I got this wrong? Ah, crap. I think maybe this panel was supposed to go on underneath. I'm gonna go do some thinking. Okay, after further poking around under the car, I have, well, it's not a proper, well, it is a screw up, yeah, but it's not a massive one, and it can all be fixed. Basically, this panel should have gone on. Oh, now it's stuck in there. Yeah, this panel should be tucked between here. Will basically sit on top of this bit, but underneath that. So I'm going to have to get the saw and chop this off, chop that out, and then leave these two apart again. It's not a big deal. I'm still glad I put that in first because it sets the height of everything, and I know that's bob on. I need to chop out the bit to go around there and basically degrease it. Once that bit's chopped out, it'll sit down nicely, and I can slide that in, and then I can mark exactly how much of that I need and cut it out more neatly. Certainly a lot better. It still needs some fine tuning, but it's all looking about right. Might need to lop a bit off here. I'll do that now. Cool. Right. It's going to be time consuming, boring mini chops and fettling now to get that nice, so I won't bother recording that because you probably don't care. GoPro is officially dead. It did well for a few years, but it's gone. So I'm back to the iPhone, but what I was saying was all of that's in and done. Clamps underneath are nice. I can tack that in. I just need to go and get a jack to lift that chassis rail up to make a nice good join with that floor section. Rather frustratingly, as much as I want this done and finished, I'm just running out of time today anyway. I've thrown some big heavy tacks in, just in a few key places, but it's gonna have to sit like that for, well, until I can work on it again. I've put those tacks in, and I've put a couple to the inner sill as well. Basically, although that's looking all really nice, it's quite a time consuming job because I'm going to have to go around from top and bottom to just close all these seams up nicely and to gently hammer that down as I plug weld it and make sure I'm getting penetration underneath into the chassis rail. So that's all good. I'll hopefully do some more in the evenings this week, but after that I'm taking all of my kit back to work to try and get the diesel finished, or you know, all the welding done. So there might not be very much progress on Dotty for the short-term future. Just thinking ahead again, this is logically the next bit to do while I've got good access to this side of the car. I never did take the sound deadening up. I think I poked in around this area and realised it was going to have to come up anyway, and then I just gave up and didn't really do a lot after that. I suspect it is ruined, but you never know with this car. That's just a bung that can come out. Let's see what we've got. You're finding out as much as I am. Do all that off, out of the way. More tool abuse, look away. Tool fans now. This is not how you're supposed to use scissors. Yeah, there's actually some quite good metal there, so how much needs to come out, I don't know. Almost certainly this area here will. I'm already making some holes. Quite how far forward I'll need to go, I don't know. Don't be fooled, this is again that sound deadening stuff rather than metal. The real damage will be under here in this corner. Well, the hammer hasn't actually gone through, so they might be rather localised repairs compared with what went on at the back. Yeah, that's all alright actually. Good, right, yeah, as I said, I'm rambling now, I'm tired, I'm going in. See you next time.